Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to start with all the knowledge and skills, starting with the knowledge and skills in all domains. The first knowledge and skill that we are going to see is going to be development methodologies. This is where we are going to look into and cover the following topics. What is the waterfall model? Advantages of using the waterfall model? When should a waterfall methodology be used in projects? What is the Agile model? What's the difference between Agile and Waterfall methodology? We'll see some Agile Principles, different methodologies of Agile framework. Then we'll look into what is Lean software development, the principles of Lean software development, Kanban software development, and the basic principles of Kanban. So the first one is, what is the waterfall model? The waterfall model is a sequential design process often used in software development processes in which progress is seen as flowing steadily downwards like a waterfall through the phases of conception, initiation, requirement analysis, designing, construction, testing, production implementation, and maintenance. In waterfall methodology, the next phase is started only after the defined set of goals are achieved for the previous phase and it's signed off. In this model, phases do not overlap. So let's take a look at a picture of how a waterfall methodology looks. These are the phases of waterfall methodology, where you start with the plan, then you build it. Once the build is done, you test it to see if everything was built according to the plan. Then you review it, and then finally you deploy it. Now you can see it in the picture. It is in the form of a waterfall where one step cannot be worked with unless the previous step is complete. While when we get to the other methodologies, they work a little bit differently, and then we will go and compare the difference between these. So let's get back to the description of the waterfall methodology. First, let's see the advantages of using this waterfall model. Now, an example of a waterfall model used in a project would be building a house. First, you will have to plan and make all these documentations and all the drawings for the house to be able to go into the next phase. So first I make all the floor plans, all the elevations, all the sections, all the drawings, get the permit from the city to be able to build the house. Once we have the permit, we'll go into like the construction phase. So basically you cannot go into construction or the build phase till your planning is complete. So we have to plan for the whole house. It's not like you're just planning for a couple rooms. So you plan for the whole house, where everything is going to be, where the landscape is going to be, where the rooms are going to be, how everything is going to be laid out, how it is going to look, get the approval from the city, and then you go to the next step of building the house or constructing the house. So that's the main thing with Waterfall. We have to understand it is a step-by-step process. Now once the house is constructed, then we go to the next phase of testing, where we test if everything that we built was according to the plan, where everything that we built was according to the specifications that were agreed to. Once the test is done, there is going to be a review, where a person from the city is going to come in and going to review everything and then give it an approval. Once the approval is received, that's when you hand it over to the customer. That's when the deployment stage comes in. Okay, so let's look at the advantages of the waterfall model. The advantage of waterfall development is that it allows for departmentalization and control. A schedule can be set with deadlines for each stage of development, and a product can proceed through the development process model phases one by one. Development moves from concept through design, implementation, testing, installation, troubleshooting, and ends up at operations and maintenance. Each phase of development proceeds in a strict order. So basically, I cannot do plan and then jump straight to testing. I cannot deploy it unless I have reviewed it, unless it has been tested, unless it has been built. So this gives more control throughout the development process, because one phase doesn't start till the other is complete. So that's where it allows for departmentalization and control. Now when we are using waterfall, it's easy to set a schedule with deadlines for each different phase. So I'm going to set a deadline for making all the drawings for the house, and that's the only time you are going to have to do all your planning documents, all your construction documents. So the time is going to be set aside for that. Now same thing is I'm going to set a time for a review, for testing, and for deployment. So this helps with deadlines and having clear goals. But one of the main problems is if I find a problem during a testing phase or review phase, then I will have to go back all the way to the first phase, which is planning, and then fix the plan, then again go ahead and build it, and then test it and review it and then deploy it. Okay, so let's see some of the disadvantages that we have of using the waterfall model. The disadvantage of waterfall development is that it does not allow for much reflection or revision. So just imagine that you are doing testing and all of a sudden you found that there's a huge problem and we did not take this into consideration. And now this will stop the project from moving ahead till we go and fix the problem. But then we are already so far ahead in the project, it is really tough to go back and fix that problem. So this can result in the project being cancelled, or this can result in the project costing us more money than we anticipated, and the schedule will get affected as well. So now let's take a look into when should waterfall methodology be used. So in software development, when requirements are very well documented, clear, and fixed, then it's a good idea to use waterfall. This is very important because if the requirements are not well documented, and if we are using, if we are working on a project where the requirements might change, then it's not a good idea to use waterfall. Because anytime there is a change in requirement, and if we are using waterfall, then it's a big problem to fix that. Then we can use waterfall if the product definition is stable, if the technology is understood and not dynamic. Now in software development or even in manufacturing, the technology is always advancing, and during the project we might be in a place where the technology might not be 100% understood, and we know that during our whole project there might be some changes because of the technology and some updates. That's when you would not want to use waterfall. You'll probably go into agile. Like for example, we have a new technology that has just come in where you're able to chat on the internet using a webcam, and now we want to implement that in our project, but again the technology is new, so everyone on board may not be really updated with this technology, or even the technology might be evolving. So that's where you would want to use a different methodology other than waterfall. There is no ambiguous requirements. Then we have ample resources with required expertise are available to support the product. So if we have ample resources, if we have experts on our team who has done something like this before, then yeah, then it's a good idea. Then we can go ahead and use waterfall. But a lot of times, that project is something that is new, and there might be a chance where not everyone on board has expertise on that project, especially when it comes to software development projects. Okay, so this is about waterfall. Now let's take a look at Agile methodology model. What is Agile model? Agile methodology is iterative, incremental, and evolutionary. Okay, Agile methods break tasks into small increments with minimal planning and do not directly involve long-term planning. So as you can already see over here, the difference between Agile and Waterfall. Agile does not require long-term planning. Agile is iterative, incremental, It allows you to break the task in smaller pieces and smaller increments. In Agile, we require minimal planning. In Waterfall, we require detailed planning to be able to go in the next step. Now, Agile methodology is a methodology that's used mostly in software development, and it can be easily implemented when we are using Agile methodology. Agile methods are adaptive. One of the key of adaptive development methodology is rolling wave approach to schedule planning. Now, what is rolling wave planning? Rolling wave planning is used in a methodology where your requirements are not set in stone, where changes are going to happen in your project and you already anticipate that. So adaptive methods focus on adapting quickly to changing realities. Sprints, iterations, are short time frames that typically last from 1 to 4 weeks. So in Agile model, we work with sprints and iterations. Now these last anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks. Now let's take a look at the picture. So what you see over here is one typical sprint which will last from 1 to 4 weeks. Now in these 1 to 4 weeks, we are going to pick certain user stories, and we make sure that by the end of week 4 or by the end of week 1, whatever we decide to use as a sprint length, we already deploy those user stories. So they are basically ready by the end of 1 to 4 weeks, depending on how many user stories we plan to complete, or depending on how many tasks that we plan to complete. So what we are doing over here is by the end of 4 weeks, we've already planned the user stories or the task that we are going to complete. We build those where we do the coding, everything is built. Then the testing engineers will make sure that it is tested and according to the plan. Then you'll have a review. Once the review is done, at the end of week 4, you will deploy all those user stories or all those tasks. Then you jump to the next sprint again, which would be 1 to 4 weeks. Sometimes the sprint might be even 2 months to 3 months long. Okay, but typically in Agile, you stick to 1 to 4 weeks. So then you go to the next sprint, you're picking up the user stories, and then you complete it, and then you review and deploy it. Now what happens is in sprint 2, we find a problem. So what we will have to do is we'll have to go fix the problem, and we'll probably do that in sprint 3. So you're just losing maximum of 1 to 4 weeks of time, and you don't have to go and start all the way in the beginning. Okay, so this is where Agile gets adaptive. This is where it is helpful for projects that might have a lot of change. If I were to use Waterfall in a project like this and there was any change in the build or the test phase, then I'll have to go back and do the whole plan again. Okay, so this is the main difference between Agile and Waterfall. This is more adaptive, this is more iterative, this is used in projects that you're not fixed with the requirements, where the requirements are not stable. Then we are using Agile. So let's go back and look a little bit more in here. So sprints, iterations are short frames that typically last from 1 to 4 weeks. Each sprint iteration involves a cross-functional team working on all functions for planning, requirement analysis, designing, coding, unit testing, and acceptance testing. So the business analyst would be primarily required in the requirement analysis phase, where they will come up with user stories, where these stories are going to be prioritized in the product backlog. Now we'll get to the product backlog and how backlog grooming is done later on when we get to that knowledge and skill, and we'll understand how this whole Agile methodology works and how the task items are added, how they are removed, how they are prioritized, how they are deleted, and all of that when we get to that tool and technique. At the end of each iteration, a working product is demonstrated to the stakeholder. So now if you look into this one sprint, we worked on these 4 different tasks, for example, and at the end of this sprint I will deploy these 4 tasks so the stakeholder can go and do testing and see if it is working and see if that is what they want and if there are any changes that they need to be made. Okay, so we have a working model by the end of week 4. An example of this in software development is we decide to complete the whole register process of a customer, for example. So the customer, one of the user stories would be the customer should be able to log in, the customer should be able to create an account, the customer should be able to put in a username and password, the customer should be able to retrieve a password if for some reason they forget the password. So these are some of the user stories that would be part of the login process. So what I'm going to give to the stakeholder by the end of week 4 is the complete login, where I have worked with these 10 user stories where the customer or the stakeholder can go in at the end of week 4 and test if that's what they were looking for and if everything is working fine. If for some reason there is a problem, then that problem would probably be taken and tackled in the next sprint. Or if the problem is a really big problem, then they will have another new sprint set aside for fixing that. The main goal is to have an available release at the end of each iteration. Scrum is the most popular way of introducing agility due to its simplicity and flexibility. Agile approaches are typically used in software development to help businesses respond to unpredictability. So if you're working on the project that is unpredictable, you will want to use the Agile model. Now, we already know the differences, but let's take a look at the differences that we have here. One of the main differences between Agile and Waterfall is that testing of the software is conducted at different stages during the software development lifecycle. So now, if you look over here in Waterfall, testing is done somewhere in the middle of the project. So if the project is 1 year long, the testing is done somewhere on month 7 or month maybe 6. But when it's in Agile, that you see, testing is done at every sprint. So if this was a 1 year project and we have close to 36 some sprints, then every 3 to 4 weeks we will be doing testing. And if anything you see is wrong, then you're not wasting all the time before that. In the Waterfall model, there is always a separate testing phase near the completion of an implementation phase. However, in Agile, testing is usually done concurrently with coding, or at least testing jobs start in early iterations. Now, let's see some of the Agile principles. Customer satisfaction by rapid delivery of useful software. Welcome changing requirements. Now, when we are using Waterfall, no one likes any changing requirements. If that happens, there's a big problem. So, but in Agile, you welcome changing requirements, and a lot of stakeholders like that. Working software is delivered frequently in weeks rather than in months. Close daily cooperation between business people and developers and the whole team members. Face-to-face conversation is the best form of communication, where in Agile you are working with all the team members, and mostly a lot of times when you are in a sprint and you have a deadline, everyone works in the same locations. Then projects are built around self-organizing teams of motivated individuals who should be trusted. But the thing with when it comes to Agile and using Scrum, you have to make sure that the team members should be trusted. You don't want to have someone on the team who doesn't like to work in a team environment, because when it comes to Agile, as we can see, there is a limitation on time because the sprints are really short. Now, if you have a team member who's not motivated to complete this on time, then again, it's a big problem. Regular adaptation to changing circumstances. So the team members should be open to any changes, any changing circumstances, so that we go along with the project. And one of the main reasons why we picked the Agile methodology was because we are not aware of the technology. Technology is always changing, and there's a big chance the requirements are going to change. Different methodologies of Agile framework. Now, there are different methodologies used within Agile. The one that's most used is the Scrum methodology, where you have all the user stories, and this is what we were basically looking at right now, where we go through the different sprints and the plan, build, test, review, and then finally at the end of the week you deploy it for the stakeholder to test it. Then we have extreme programming, we have feature driven development, then we have lean development. We're going to take a look into lean development and the principles. Then we have Kanban. We're going to take a look into Kanban and its principles. Then we have dynamic system development and test driven development. So these are the different methodologies used in the Agile framework. So when you are planning to use the Agile methodology, you are going to pick into which one of the framework you would like to use, or which is the best to use in your project. Now when it comes to Agile, it's mostly used in software development. It's used a lot in mechanical engineering as well. When it comes to architecture and construction, it is not that much used. Okay, but you can use still a little combination of these, but when it comes to construction, mostly you will be following the waterfall methodology. Let's jump to the lean software development now. So for the exam, it is important that we understand these different methodologies. So what is the lean software development? Lean is a production practice that considers the expenditure of resources for any goal other than creation of value for the end customer to be wasteful, and thus a target for elimination. So this is where when we are using lean software development, we are looking into spending of time and money and resources towards the end customer. If there is anything other than going towards the value for the end customer, we consider it as wasteful. So if we see anything that's not going towards the end product, towards the customer, we try to eliminate that. We target it and then we do elimination. In lean software development, it is a translation of lean manufacturing and lean IT principles and practices to software development domain. So you use a lot of this in manufacturing. If there is any expenditure, as I said, that is not going towards the end product, it's not going towards the customer, it is considered as wasteful and you eliminate that. So we are using the elimination technique over here. So let's see some of the principles that is used in lean development principles. One is eliminate waste, amplify learning, decide as late as possible, deliver as fast as possible, empower the team, build integrity, and see the system as a whole. So it uses whole system thinking. This is where when you are going to think of the project as a whole and not in pieces, you are going to look in terms of sustainability, how everything connects, how we can avoid waste. So this is more of a sustainable way of designing and working with the project. So the first one being eliminate waste, we saw that one where lean philosophy regards everything not adding value to the customer as waste. Such waste may include unnecessary coding and functionality. So if we are doing unnecessary code, we want to avoid that. You want to just spend time in coding which is adding value to the customer. So delay in software development processes. If there is a delay in the development process, you target the delay. Where is the delay? Why is the delay happening? How can we eliminate that? Then, unclear requirements, insufficient testing, slow internal communications. So the business analyst is coming up with these requirements. And if we have unclear requirements, obviously that's going to cause a lot of delay and problems. If the requirements are unclear, there is going to be unnecessary coding. And if there is unnecessary coding, then there's going to be time for unnecessary testing of things that shouldn't have been done in the first place. So lean development is around how to get the best requirements there are. So you follow these standards. We are going to use this methodology. This is how we are going to document the requirements, and that's what everyone needs to follow. So the requirements cannot be unclear. Then amplify learning. The best approach for improving a software development environment is to amplify the learning. Example, the accumulation of defects should be prevented by running tests as soon as the code is written. The process of user requirements gathering could be simplified by presenting screens to the end user and getting their input. So over here, you're trying to amplify the whole learning, where you're trying to prevent extra code by making sure the requirements are gathered and presented are correct. Now, when you gather the requirements, you're going to present the requirement screens and screenshot and user interface screenshots to the end user, and you already get their input. You don't wait till the end that the testing is done and the customer finds out, hey, at the end of the sprint, this is not I was looking for. So you gather the requirements, you get an input from the end user. This is what they are looking for. This is how the model looks like. This is how the screen will look like. And then they would give you an approval or tell you, okay, this is something that I didn't want and I want it to be changed. So once that happens, then you are avoiding going into the building and testing and reviewing and deployment, because you already found the problem right in the beginning, in which was the requirement, and fixed it. So that's what you are going to do, is amplify the learning. Decide as late as possible. So you delay the decisions as much as possible until they can be made based on facts and not on uncertain assumptions and predictions. So you try to avoid assumptions and predictions. So if there is a decision, you delay it just to make sure the decision is based on facts and not on any assumptions or predictions. That's what someone said. Okay, so you have to delay your decisions as much as possible till you know for sure why, till it's based on facts, and deliver as fast as possible. So the sooner the end product is delivered without major defects, the better. So you're not delaying the process, you're still trying to deliver as fast as possible and without any major defects. Then we empower the team, you encourage the team, you are teaching the team, you update the team, you work in a team, and that's what needs to be done in pretty much any methodology, but obviously one of the principles in lean development. Then we build integrity, and as I said, see as a whole. So you're not looking at the project in some small parts and pieces. Everyone is working towards the whole project, towards a complete project. Okay, when we are, for example, building a house, the architect is done after he's designing. I'm giving an example for a project which is not whole. Okay, so we are designing maybe a library. And the architect, all he does is just do the design, and then he takes on the design and gives it to the contractor, and then the contractor is going to take on and build the structure, and then he's going to give it to the customer. But in whole systems, all these end users or stakeholders are involved from the start to the end. It's not like the contractor is going to look at the project only when the drawings are complete and the permit is received. The contractor should be involved since the beginning. So the contractor can already give an input. Hey, architect, you're putting this over here, and I know there might be a problem with this. Now the end users are going to be part of the whole design process as well, because they are the ones who are going to use the library. So they will come up with their reasons as to why this design should be updated. So this is what is whole system, where you involve all the stakeholders together since the beginning, in the planning phase, in the design phase, in the test phase, then the review phase, and the deployment phase. This is again to eliminate waste, because all of a sudden the contractor sees, hey, this is not possible, and then you have to go back and update it, which will take a lot of time and a lot of money, and not everything is connected. Another example would be, in the same project, you bring in the landscape designer, and the landscape designer is going to design the landscape around the library. Now you are thinking as the whole, where the landscape designer will come with their expertise as to what type of trees to use, depending on where the library is located. If it is in a drought area, then you want to use these trees. If you have ample of sunlight, then you want to use these trees, and then you come up with the best landscape. Okay, so that is where you will work as a whole and see as a whole, rather than just small individual pieces. Let's get to the next one, which is, what is Kanban software development? Before we get there, let's take a look at the picture for lean development. See, so we plan it, we build it, we test it, we review it, and we deploy it. When we were working with the previous one with Agile, the review and deployment was at the end of the sprint. If you can see over here. So the review and deployment is at the end of a sprint. Now over here, we are trying to eliminate any waste, anything, and we do all of them in one process. So we start with the plan, we build it, we test it, we review it, and then we deploy it. Till we do that, we don't go to the next one. And then, we keep going till we finish all the tasks. Okay, so let's get to the description of what Kanban software development is. Kanban is a method for managing knowledge work with an emphasis on just-in-time delivery while not overloading the team member. So this is where you are emphasizing on, is to deliver the project just in time, while at the same time you make sure that you're not overloading the team members. You're not burning the team members from a lot of work. So in this approach, the process from definition of the task to its delivery to the customer is displayed for participants to see, and team members pull work from the queue. So Kanban, in the context of software development, can mean a visual process management system that tells what to produce, when to produce, and how to produce. Kanban is an effective tool in support of running a production system as a whole, and is an excellent way for promoting improvement. Now again, even Kanban is working towards the project and working towards seeing the project as a whole and not in pieces. Let's see the 4 basic principles that are used in Kanban. So what you do over here is start with the existing process, agree to pursue incremental evolutionary change, you respect the current process, roles, responsibilities, and titles, and leadership at all levels. So the whole software development revolves around these 4 basic principles. So this is where you're starting with the existing process, obviously. So the Kanban method starts with the existing roles and processes and stimulates continuous, incremental, and evolutionary changes to the system. The Kanban method is a change management method. So you're starting with the process and then you're working towards making this process better. But the process is incremental and evolutionary. It's not like all of a sudden you just change the whole process and start with a new process altogether. You start with the existing process and you work towards improving it. It is a change management method. Now, when we are working towards the change management method and improvement, you all should agree to pursue incremental evolutionary change. So the team members should be on board with the evolutionary changes. Everyone should agree to pursue change. So the Kanban method encourages continuous, small, incremental, and evolutionary change to the current system that is being used. The next one, the third principle, is respect the current process, roles, responsibilities, and titles. So over here, it attempts to eliminate initial fears by agreeing to respect current roles, the responsibilities, and job titles with the goal of gaining broader support. And the last one, which is one of the most important, is leadership at all levels. So acts of leadership at all levels in organization, from individual contributors to senior management, are encouraged. So when we are using the Kanban principles, you want to have a team of leaders. You want to have a team of team members who will take responsibility of what they are doing. They should have the leadership qualities. So this is important for the success of this Kanban software development, where leadership should be at all the levels, not just at the bottom or the top. Everyone should own the project. Okay, so this ends up all the 4 software development methodologies that we had, starting with Waterfall, Agile, Lean, and Kanban. So the next tool and technique we will be covering is elicitation and facilitation tools and techniques from all the domains. So until next time, this is Tutor Ali. See you soon. Bye.